Hello out there, and welcome to a new episode here at The Virtual Frontier, the podcast about virtual teams created by Virtual Team. In this episode, we welcome Manish Bayal. Manish works at the multinational tech company Cognizant as head of the Center for the Future of Work. I talked with Manish about how the world of work is changing, what new jobs will arise in the next couple of years, where we already live in the future today, and how to break silos while creating open spaces that embrace disruption and uncertainty. For our international community, this is an English episode, and you can find the transcript of this conversation now in more than 20 languages on our blog at Happy Scribe Public, or watch the video with subtitles for this episode on our YouTube channel. Please bear with us. The audio quality of this episode is not the best. We did everything to improve it so you can enjoy. This is also the reason why this episode is published delayed. So, without further ado, let's dive into the episode 40 of The Virtual Frontier. Enjoy the conversation. Hello, Manish. Thank you very much for joining us today here on the podcast in the Virtual Frontier. I'm really glad to have you finally on the show. Before we start with our conversation, just give us a brief introduction, who you are, who you're working for, where you're coming from, so our listeners have a little idea about your person.
Sure. Thanks, Daniel, first of all, for inviting me to your show. Appreciate it. My name is Manish Bahel, and I head Center for the Future of Work in Asia Pacific and the Middle East for Cognizant. So we are basically a think tank, and our charter is to figure out how the future of everything will probably evolve with the emergence of new technologies, new business practices, and new business models. So when I say future of everything, it means that the future of work, future of our society, future of you, future of us. And for that, we engage a lot with C-level executives, with academia, with economists, with the analyst community, and try to make sense of the changes that are happening around us and how the future of our work will be restructured, reimagined, and reconfigured in the times to come. So we publish plenty of our thought leadership, through the center. And this, the kind of thought leadership we produce, it's very thought-provoking, it's very challenging, very bold, something, something that people haven't thought about. Some of the work that we are going to talk about in a moment. Some of the reports that we publish. So definitely very excited to be part of today's show, and thanks again for inviting me.
How has the last year changed for yourself, and what you have learned? So many things happened, unexpected events happened all around the world. But how did that affect yourself personally? And probably you can give us also a little bit an inside view about what happened on your client side, what you have noticed maybe there, without giving us any details or interns, of course.
Yeah, so at personal level, obviously, the entire world, went upside down with the in the wake of pandemic. When the pandemic hit, obviously, I don't think that any of us, were mentally, prepared for the change that will be thrown upon us overnight. Everyone moved online. Work from home, once considered, was more of a privilege. All of it became, a necessity for everyone. And also at the same time, if you look at, companies, the way they organize work, the way they manage work, got changed completely. So the saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. This
Yeah.
applies perfectly to today's, COVID-19 scenario. So all the businesses were adopting digital technologies long before the pandemic hit, and they may have thought, that they had a digital plan ready, but overnight they had to accelerate their strategies, transitioning in days or weeks to work from home and online modes of doing business. So the digital ways of working and behaving, like the business conferencing tools, e-commerce, remote learning, among others. So the digital ways of working and behaving, forged and refined in the heat of battle against COVID-19, will not be put back in the box, hopefully when the pandemic is over. So In fact, just to share a quick, stat, right? From one of our latest reports, we found 48% of companies we surveyed, they said that the pandemic would further accelerate digital ways of working. So I think in many ways, the pandemic acted as a moment of realization for individuals as well as for organizations that they can achieve so much with new ways of working, with new ways of doing business, and new ways of engaging with employees and with clients when everything moved online. So the bottom line is, anything that can move online obviously will move online in the future, and we have already seen, uh, the entire work scenario, the working models, the business practices, everything has already moved online, and this trend will only accelerate in the future. So definitely, COVID-19 was more of a moment of realization for many companies and individuals that they can achieve so much with digital.
You mentioned just this 48% of leadership or companies. Um, what do you think how they are prepared for those changes in those uncertain times? Because I have sometimes the feeling, yes, they are conscious about the changes that are coming, but how they are really prepared for those changes.
Yeah. If you look at, when the pandemic hit, as I said, overnight companies had to move their working practices, their business models to the virtual, to the online thing. And so far, I think companies did a pretty good job, right? Even companies, they themselves had never imagined that they could embrace the change so rapidly. So it shows that, there's so much of flexibility and agility that needs to be gained with the rise of these new working practices. So I think last 12 months, if you look at, obviously companies did what they could when it comes to moving online, leveraging digital technologies, working remotely, new ways of doing business, new ways of creating value, save customers, employees. So definitely all these initial ways of changes, right, that companies realized, so they could easily figure that out what digital had to offer. So definitely, I believe, if you look at things, turned out pretty okay for companies to manage the work. Obviously, there were some disruptions initially, but I think companies, moved to the online world of working very, very fast. And so far, I think, this trend has worked out pretty, well for companies, and it'll only gain for the momentum as we move forward. Because if you look at uh, most businesses, they were quick to respond, compressing many of their long term digital projects into a space of weeks and months, so putting them in a in a good position, right, to emerge stronger when the pandemic is over. So obviously, as I said earlier, it was more of a moment of realization that companies could achieve much more with digital, and last 12 months, right, was nothing but just a curtain raiser to the amount of changes that will come along our way in the future.
I mean, they probably will increase even further in the future without a pandemic. But what is your outlook for the new near future? Speaking about like the post pandemic behaviors, you just mentioned a little bit about that. Maybe we can dive into a little bit more deeply.
Yeah. So we believe that companies that view the pandemic as a catalyst, for becoming digital at the
Mm.
core and an opportunity to get closer to their customers and employees will maintain their footing and even grow stronger, in the recovery. Because becoming digital to the core is going to be the key to faster and stronger recovery. In fact, nearly 50% of companies that we spoke to, they said that definitely the digital ways of working will only create better opportunities, more opportunities, for them in the future. And definitely companies are banking on digital ways of working and digital channels for future revenue growth. And for that, just think about it. If you're a bank, if you're a traditional retailer, right, then obviously your future business majority of it will come from digital, channels. And for that, you need to have a very strong foundation in place, which means that becoming digital, to the core, which means that leveraging artificial intelligence, automation, analytics, right? Leveraging these technologies and trying to make sense of everything that is happening around, your business, and how to take maximum advantage by, advantage of these technologies by becoming digital to the core. So I believe that the digital to the core is going to be extremely critical for organizations to figure out how they can leverage various digital technologies for future growth and for future, opportunities, basically.
Yeah, which brings me directly to our next topic for today. What do you think? Why are so many individuals, but also like, let's say, organization, well, they can be scared, but why are so many people in organizations scared about the future of work? What is it really about? And how maybe we can get less scared and more like embrace this whole future that is coming?
That's a very good question and very important question in today's context, Daniel. If you look at, because we are living in the age of artificial intelligence. So the this age of AI is generating mixed emotions. So
Mm.
on one side, there is a sense of excitement, a capitalist dream. There is tremendous pressure on business leaders to reduce cost, to grow revenue, and there is no way they can ignore the benefits of artificial intelligence and intelligent automation. So definitely they will go after these technologies, because with the economic reward so high and the competitive pressure so large, obviously not implementing these technologies, which means that obviously you will be left behind. But then on the other side, AI, the age of AI means fear. So AI and automation means layoffs. So especially when you see scary headlines like robot will take your job, or predictions from renowned institutions like Oxford that says 47% of jobs will disappear in the next 20-25 years. So this is scary, all this making us rethink the fundamentals of companies and institutions and the very nature of work itself. But we have a very optimistic point of view when it comes to the future of work and jobs, right? If you look at, because we believe the new machine will change the labor force in three distinct ways. Job automation, that's where majority of discussion is happening today, and that's where there's everybody's sort of scared that they are going to lose their jobs to robots, right, in the near future. But as per our estimates, only 12% of existing jobs are at the risk of being taken over by bots. Only 12%. But still, we are talking about millions of jobs globally. So definitely there will be job losses. But the point is, the majority of jobs are going to get enhancement, which is the second bucket, the job enhancement. And that's where no one usually talks about how exactly a teacher is going to become a better teacher, how exactly a recruiter is going to become an enhanced recruiter with new tools and capabilities. So just think about it from a recruiter perspective. What if a machine can take over some of the redundant and day-to-day repetitive kind of tasks, going through the CVs, shortlisting some of the best ones, and then reaching out to those candidates, getting the first round of interview done. So all those tasks will be taken care by machine, but it doesn't mean that you don't need a recruiter in the future. Now recruiter can be very much focused on what really matters to candidates. A recruiter can interview more candidates. A recruiter can ensure what is actually needed for the job. So as per our estimates, 75% of existing jobs will be altered or enhanced by the bot, which means that your employment remains, but these jobs will be delivered with greater output and quality. And then the third bucket is the job creation. What about the new jobs that will also be created in the future? And again, no one talks about these new jobs because we estimate around 13% of net new jobs will be created as a result of AI, automation, big data, and algorithms. So the question is not will this job become automated in the future, but rather will this task of the job is going to get automated or not. So we don't think that majority of jobs that we see today are going to get automated. Some definitely will. Jobs that require loads of repetitive work, redundant work, data related work. So definitely all those jobs are going to get automated. But the majority of jobs are going to get enhanced, and then net new jobs will also be created in the future. So just think about it, Daniel. Humans are good at what we call the art of the job, which means the judgment, visual cues, emotion, empathy. So, what's the right thing to do based on the context of the situation? We are quite good at it. And machines are good at the science of the job, which means the computational capabilities, data analysis, pattern recognition. You can't beat a computer on number crunching. So, based on all statistical evidence, what's the most appropriate next action? And when you blend the two, the human plus machine, that's where the magic happens. So we don't need to get much scared about the future of work. Rather, we need to start creating the work based on humans plus machines.
What I also love in the preparation for this podcast is you guys at Cognizant had like a huge palette of different new jobs that will appear in the future. Might you could talk a little bit about that to get people get a better idea of what probably is coming, or we just spinning ideas around that. But having a perspective is always important, right?
Yeah, sure, right. So some time ago, we had published these two reports, 21 jobs of the future and 21 more jobs of the future. So these two reports. So in these two reports, we had published 42 jobs, jobs that don't exist today, but we believe that these are the jobs that are going to become the cornerstone of the future of work. So these reports act as a guide to getting and staying employed in the next 10 years. These two reports are available in the public domain, so I encourage your audience to download these reports and get a flair of what sort of jobs that will be there in the future. And the jobs we described emerged from studying and analyzing economic, political, demographic, societal, cultural, business and technology trends, and then drawing implications from them. So to highlight some of my favorite jobs that are there in the report, one is around the man machine teaming manager, right? So man machine teaming manager, which means that if the future of work and workforce is going to be hybrid, we need someone who can manage both humans and machines and ensure that humans and machines are working in collaboration and the work is divided between the two as per their capabilities and capacities that they have got. Another role that we have developed is the machine risk officer. So just think about it, from unexpected or biased results to dangerous errors, we now face the moral dilemma of deciding who should bear the responsibility for any wrongdoing by an AI driven machine. So some time ago, I think that was last year or two in 2019, a driverless car killing a pedestrian. And all of a sudden it became a global news. But we were facing the moral dilemma. If a driverless car is going to kill someone, who should bear the responsibility, of that issue? Is it going to be the AI, software developer? Is it going to be the auto manufacturing company, insurance company? We don't know that. So from unexpected or biased results to perpetuation of dangerous errors, we are sensitive to the unintended consequences of the actions of intelligent machines and how these errors could have a significant impact on our on company's brand and finances. So definitely a machine risk officer will define roles and responsibilities between humans and machines and set the rules for how human counterparts should handle machine caused wrongdoing, which means this involved designing trustworthy experiences, training employees, developing risk benefit metrics, overhauling the ethics principles, and ensuring our employees are in the driver's seat to monitor machines. And one last, although there are so many jobs that we can talk about, right? But another, job that I would like to talk about that we have created is algorithm bias auditor. So just like you have an auditor for an organization to audit your finances, so on similar lines, we are going to have an auditor who's going to audit all the algorithms that are running across the organization. So that auditor is going to define the purpose of these algorithms. Why have you implemented this algorithm? What are the outcomes of these algorithms? And to ensure that these algorithms are not biased, in any way. And these algorithms are not treated like a black box. So algorithm, bias auditor, man machine, teaming manager, and the machine risk officer. So these are some of the, very interesting roles that we have developed in addition to others that are there in the report. As I said again, these reports are available in the public domain. So I encourage your audience to download and get a feel of how future jobs will look like.
Yeah, as I loved those reports very much, I will, of course, put them also in the show notes and description, so our listeners have direct access to it, and hopefully will get in touch with that and download it also. Um, as we are talking about this new jobs that may be coming up in the near future, I still have the feeling that we are still in some kind of a gridlock where we stuck in old thinking, old management style. And I was wondering how we can overcome this and embrace the future more as in a positive context and be prepared first of all.
Yeah, sure. If you look at, jobs in the past, they were stable, they were linear, they were singular, which means that people commonly chose one career path and pursued it over the course of their entire lives. If I talk about my parents, my father who worked in a bank throughout his, a career throughout his life. So from education through the retirement, the skills acquired through post secondary education and at work training, they were sufficient to ensure that your career moves in the right direction and you succeed, and you get retired at the end. But now what's happening is the change. What we are experiencing is the rise of automation and AI. So definitely these technologies have raised questions about the employable skills, attitudes and behaviors that are required for people to participate in the future of work. So in reality, many jobs will be substantially altered, if not completely replaced, by AI driven machines in the coming decade. However, on the flip side is many new jobs, some that still seem like science fiction today, jobs that we talked about, as part of 21 jobs and 21 more jobs report. So how exactly we can prepare, workforce for these, new jobs that are going to be created, that will emerge in the future? As a result of the changes that are happening around us, employable skills are now like mobile apps, that need frequent upgrades. And these skills will continue to evolve more rapidly in the future than they do now. So the bottom line is, which skills will be important in the future if you think about it. So we found the importance of AI and robotics and technical skills are going to be important. And that's not a brainer. But what's really interesting is we found 80% of businesses are saying the importance of human skills, the soft skills, right? The imagination, the creativity, the communication, right? So these skills will be extremely important in the future because the future jobs will require a combination of human and technological capabilities, as well as the, it's going to be extremely important that we prepare our workforce, with the right hybrid, skill set. To give you an example, even big data and data science jobs are more likely to demand creativity, teamwork, research, and writing skills than other jobs. So, as a data scientist, you should be able to communicate your findings in a nice, easy to digest way. And interestingly, what we also looked at, learning as a skill is going to be extremely important in the future because the rise of automation and AI is raising questions about the employable skills, right? And that's where preparing the current and future workforce with relevant skills requires a reboot of traditional decades old training and learning models and approaches. And that's where to establish new learning models, businesses need to engage in more flexible partnerships, accelerate their response time, and provide more proactive, modes of delivery and offer new combined, scaled, programs. So preparing the current and future workforce is going to be everyone's job, and it's not going to be only individuals' responsibility or only corporates' responsibility. It's going to be everyone's job. But what's more important is what's going to make us human is going to make us employable in the future. So we need to double down on what really makes us humans, and not to compete against the machines, but rather how to leverage some of machines' capabilities and translate those capabilities from humans perspective. So becoming a better human is going to be extremely important in the future.
For sure, something that we haven't on had on our CVs in the past decade, right? And as you just mentioned, the data scientist, for example, has also to embrace different kind of disciplines, right? He's not bound anymore just to his data. He has to learn how to write, how to communicate, how to work in a team. So this brings up also this keyword for me. I had here on my list of the preparation. Breaking up silos and working like in cross-functional settings and environments, because you won't be able to just work as a data scientist, as we have picked them, and fulfill your work or getting somewhere. We have to break up those silos and work with cross-functional teams or even companies or organizations to get somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because in the future, right, we believe, we need to rethink organizational and team structures. Because as AI and automation take over majority of repetitive tasks, work demand will change team structures. So rather than larger, hierarchical team structures, smaller teams will emerge that allow individuals and teams to become more fluid and flexible across roles and functions, and that's going to bring greater agility for organizations, because now with the dynamic, with flexible, with fluid talent, right, you can increase the your response to the change that is happening around us. You can be more focused on customers, right? And that's where I believe it's going to be extremely important for have these smaller teams and the fluid talent that is flowing across the organization. To give you an example, instead of concentrating technology professionals in a centralized IT department, right, leaders will embed software designers and engineers in independent teams where they can be quickly deployed on high priority, goals. So we should expect to see, multidisciplinary teams emerge across functional departments in the future.
And that also working together, of course, with AI. We have touched the topic AI a little bit in previously, but I would like to ask you specifically what people really get wrong about this whole idea of AI and at the workplace, especially, and how could we gain probably a different perspective on that?
Yeah, so I think we need to develop a more realistic view of humans' role in the age of AI. And we shouldn't we shouldn't underestimate, human imagination and the human adaptability factor, because we have seen whenever there is a change that is being thrown on us, humans are very good at adapting to, the change. So the top valued, workforce skills will increasingly be tilted towards, human capabilities that validate the need for human-machine collaboration, which means that decision making, strategic thinking, and learning. So these skills are best performed when workers are supported by the insights generated by AI and data analytics and freed by intelligent automation from performing repetitive work. So increasingly, the human role will become more focused on what to do with all the data driven insights that you are getting, which requires a renewed focus on decision making and strategic thinking. And also, if you look at machines lack the emotional quotient, and they are less effective in a real time customer service instance. So look at Japan is an excellent example of human coexistence with robots in the home and the workplace. For Japanese, robots are seen as a companion and not as a destructive force. So for people, right, for individuals as well for organizations to ensure that we are getting AI in the right spirit, there is a framework that we have developed, what I call the 5 T's. 5 T stands for tasks, teams, talent, technology, and trust to successfully transition into the new world of work. Task means that you have to deconstruct jobs into tasks and then identify which tasks are meant for humans and tasks that are meant for machines. And then teams that we have already talked about. What sort of team structures that will be required in the future? And then talent. What sort of talent that is going to be important? Skills that we talk about. The technology infrastructure that needs a complete overhaul. We need a modern foundation, technology foundation, to ensure that the organizations are supporting the new ways of working and new ways of doing business. And then ultimately trust, how to make sure that employees are comfortable working with machines and they're not scared of. So this 5 T's framework, right, will help individuals to get a good handle of the human machine work, because the work ahead is all about striking a balance between machine driven and human centric work. Even when machines can do everything, it will still be people who are the ultimate X factor. So we don't need to get scared of the robots, that robots are coming, but rather trying to figure out different ways, different opportunities, right, that we can generate to collaborate with these machines to become better humans at the end of the day.
When we talk about this increased interaction and expansion between those different worlds, we have talking about the advantages, but where you see probably some disadvantages, or where might lie some risks on the way getting there.
Yeah, so I think the biggest risk is, right, for especially for organizations, is obviously there is so much of upside in terms of cost savings, right, that companies can generate with intelligent automation and AI, and in the process they could overlook the human factor, right? Even if you are, you can generate, right, loads of savings with machines, you will still need humans. But those humans could be redeployed, for some other engagements or for some better work, for customer interactions, for customer experience, to elevate the customer experience. So I think when it comes to looking at AI and automation and the digital technologies, right, always, put humans at the center, because how you're going to leverage these technologies to enhance your existing workforce, right? Because increasingly the human role will become more focused on what gets done with data driven insights. Because even if machine is going to generate all the insights, still you need someone who can make sense of those insights and who can leverage those insights to better engage with customers at the end of the day, which requires, again, going back to my point, a renewed focus on decision making, strategic thinking, and ultimately learning. Because when intelligent machines take on the work of collecting, managing, and analyzing data, the self-learning algorithms that drive them can learn much faster and generate insights, helping businesses lower costs, improve productivity, and offer more targeted products and services to consumers. So my, a suggestion, right, to leaders and companies looking to adopt AI and automation is, do not overlook the human factor. Uh, Put human at the center of any new experiment that you are doing, and ensure that you are elevating, you are enhancing the role of humans and not just deploying technology.
Yeah, I think that can be pointed out even enough. Um, I guess a lot of business leaders are always having this not so open-minded. We come from the German background. We love like structured things and everything, right? But how can business leader be more open-minded when it comes to these uncertain futures that we still not have discovered right now, frontiers where we haven't gone? How they can be in general more open-minded about that for the future?
Yeah, I think obviously, right, business leaders, as I said earlier, they're under tremendous pressure to reduce costs, right, to grow their revenue, right, and at times that can be a bit distractive. You can look to achieve some, immediate results, right, with these technologies. But I think what leaders need to do is, right, to have that open mind, is to adopt a dual strategy. On one hand, you can look for the low hanging fruits, whereby applying technology you can get some immediate results. And then on the other hand, you need to have a medium to long term strategy in place. So how these technologies, right, how AI and automation are going to change the way you work, the way you create business value, and the way you deliver your products and services to customers. So obviously, right, we need to have a dual strategy in place. On one hand, look for some immediate outcomes, right, that you can gain with these technologies. But on the important side, on the other hand, you really need to have a long term strategy in place that is going to create the future of your own work and the future of your own business. So having a dual strategy in place will help leaders charter on an open mind issue that you were talking about.
Yeah. Mm, I'm just wondering, do you think like humans in general are able to adapt to this all new environment with so much change coming up? So the human as itself is like really like a animal that doesn't love change so much, and there's so much change happening right now, and will change will happen in the future. Do you think we are really able to cope up with that?
Yeah, I don't underestimate, the power of human adaptability, right? I wrote this blog, some time ago. Don't underestimate the power of human adaptability. And one of the key takeaways from the blog is, right, when we are forced, right, to adapt to a certain situation, we do it very, very fast, right? Look at in the case of, in the wake of pandemic, when the pandemic hit, right? So whether you liked working online or not, regardless of your interest, you quickly move to the online world, okay, without any complaints, right? So that way, if you look at it, and history teaches us, there were so many incidents, right, at a global level, at national level, at country level, we have experienced that when people are forced to adapt to situation, they do it very, very fast, and that's where humans are extremely good at. To give you one more example, I live in India, right? So couple of years ago, the demonetization happened, right? So all of a sudden, the old currency, went out of the system. It was completely banned, and people were so comfortable dealing in cash. They didn't want to move to the digital banking or the digital payments at all. But the moment demonetization happened, right, I have seen uh, majority of small scale vendors, your grocery shops, right, your milk vendor, everyone moved to digital payments overnight. They were not comfortable doing it earlier, but when they were forced to do it, right, they did it immediately, right? So the point is, we shouldn't underestimate the power of human adaptability, and that's how humans have survived over the last several ages, because we have been very, very adaptable to the changes. And I'm sure, right, the in the wake of the pandemic, all the changes that we have experienced or still experiencing, it's going to help us become better humans in the future. How to cope up with different situations, and how to come up with something something when the going tech gets tough. So definitely, I believe the ongoing situation, it's going to make us much more stronger and much more adaptable to the changes in the future.
Yeah, wonderful. I think as you just mentioned, sometimes the peak point has to, or the pressure has to be like higher and to get things like really moving before we are still in this comfort zones when something has to change, but we are still saying, oh, could we waiting a little bit more?
Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that every time leaders need to put that pressure, that force, right, on people to change. The examples that I gave, obviously, in many cases, right, we have been forced to do it. But at the end of the day, right, as a leader, if you really want your workforce to change their attitude, their mindset, obviously, there is a lot of ways you can do it by having a top-down approach. If leader is changing, if leader is becoming a digital leader, for instance, right, if you are active on, let's say, on social media, if you're active on LinkedIn, if you're active on Twitter, and then obviously people look at their leaders, right, what they are doing and how they are doing, what they are saying, and they tend to follow those changes that leaders have adopted. So it's not necessary that every time that you have to put up pressure for people to change, but at times it gets very, very extremely important, then you have to do it. But there are other ways, by leading with example, that's going to be extremely important.
Yeah, no, yeah, I completely there with you. Because with pressure itself from the management or leadership, you don't get so much done, and or just to a certain point, and yeah, as things are starting getting complex, you really need everyone on board and hands on, rather than pushing them all around the place. Thank you very much for that insight. Manish, as we coming to an end for our conversation today, when people would like to know more about you, about the company you work with, Cognizant, how could they get in touch, or what would be a good source of information they could go for?
Yeah, sure. Right. So anyone who wants to reach out to me to learn more about or to discuss, what's happening around the future of work and how the work will be restructured, reimagined, and reconfigured in the times to come, feel free to drop a note at manish.behel at cognizant.com. You can also visit Center for the Future of Work page, which is cognizant.com/future of work, cognizant.com/future of work. So that's our virtual home. And that's where you will find all our reports, blogs, what we have been thinking and talking about. So everything is published, there. So follow this, page, right? And I'm sure it'll give you, some interesting insights, what could possibly happen in the times to come.
Thank you very much for that, Manish. I really appreciate the conversation today with you. It was quite interesting and got a lot of insights. Hope we can do it soon again.
Yeah, sure. Would love to do that. Thanks, Daniel, for inviting me to your show.
Oh, it was
really
great to have you.
Thank you.
What a ride into the future of work. This was really a mind-opening and encouraging conversation. I hope you were also able to gain some new perspectives that changed the way you perceive the future of work. Before you leave, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumb up, or share it around with your friends and colleagues. Sign up also for the free Business Builder training on flashhub.io and learn more about how to scale with your business at any time, working with global top talents, and make work better. On behalf of the team here at the Virtual Frontier, I want to say thank you for listening. So until the next episode, keep exploring new frontiers.